Welcome to GovCon Unscripted, where we dive into the unfiltered stories and strategies from all around the world of government contracting. Join host Chelsea Roberts as she explores how to navigate, thrive, and win in this complex but lucrative industry.
All right. Hey, everyone, and welcome back to GovCon Unscripted. I'm your host, Chelsea Roberts, CEO of Collaborative Compositions. Today, I've got with us Robert Fehlen, Managing Principal of Dark Corner Solutions. Robert, who are you and what do you do?
Hey, Chelsea. Thanks for having me on today. Excited for the conversation. Like I said, Robert Fehlen, Managing Principal for Dark Corner Solutions. We've got a few platforms in defense. And honestly, right now, what takes most of my day is the launch of our new platform, Mission Cultivate, which is really a discrete, secure social networking platform that's coming live for defense and national security. And then as far as what I do day to day, it's wearing a bunch of different hats across the board with the team, especially with the launch, and then try to balance the family life in there as well. And I know you're going through and experiencing some of that yourself.
Very much. It's a fun balancing act, I must say.
Yes, absolutely.
So tell us about Dark Corner Solutions. What is it that you all do there?
Absolutely. So at its core, we basically invest, acquire, and launch products and platforms in different verticals. One of our major focuses, though, is in the defense and national security market. One of our platforms, which many folks on the government side are more familiar with, is the Vision platform, which is the product and program management platform for defense across the branches. And then, of course, we've got some equity funds in the background as well, and a couple fun projects we do in the dark corners, as the name would imply. But it's fun for me because every day is different and get to wear really different hats within truly different companies at the same time.
Now, what pulled you into the fun and wonderful world of defense and national security?
Yeah. Growing up, my childhood dream was always actually to go to the Air Force Academy. My father was 28 years Air Force, retired out of the Pentagon, leading a big space portfolio there. My mom and dad actually met in Operation Desert Storm. She was Air Force as well. Grandfather Army and great grandfather was actually at Pearl Harbor when everything happened as a communications officer. Before my grandpa passed away, though, he constantly reminded me that I was the firstborn in multiple generations not to serve. And it wasn't for lack of trying. I wanted to go to the academy, but the health reasons had kept me out. So I actually went down the private equity and venture capital route for a bit, worked for a fund out of the Midwest, and then decided, hey, I wanted to sit on the other side of the table. It seemed more adrenaline packed and fun over on that side, seeing the business owners on the other side of the table. So built, launched, and exited a couple different companies along the path until I met my current business partner, Jerry Ramey, the other managing principal here with Dark Corner. So I'd say probably over one too many bourbons, he convinced me with the work that they were doing in defense, this is a different way to get back into it and serve in a different way. And fast forward, and here we are.
That's a fantastic story. There's so many folks out there that really want to serve the mission, but they don't find themselves sure of how to go about that. So I think that taking some of those alternative routes and being able to still contribute to the national security posture and the ecosystem is incredibly valuable. Tell us a little bit about what you're currently doing with Dark Corner. I know you mentioned you've got a couple of platforms, but you've got a new one that you're working up, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Our main focus, which we just basically launched the pre-launch, quote unquote, right on August 19th in parallel with Fed Supernova down in Austin. But that platform, Mission Cultivate, is going after this problem we were running into ourselves, which was how do you make connections? How do you find the insiders, the advisors, the people leaving the government that know the way to operate with inside this space? And I think it's a challenge many businesses of our size even face, and new entrants into the market, and those that have been around, because I think we'd love to live in this world where, hey, government just auto matches to a technology and capability and industry, and like magic happens and you get on contract. And the reality is, like, this world is very much who you know and how they know you. So that's what led us down this market research path. We were doing a prototype marketplace for the Air Force at the time, helping them match problems that they were working on inside of the Vision platform to industry companies and capabilities. So we got to learn and see the inside look of how marketplaces work, especially government-run marketplaces. And then we started to step back on like, how are people connecting, showing up to expensive industry events, hoping you bump into the right person. And then it turns out most of the actual business gets done in the happy hours afterwards and who you know and bump into there. It's the Slack channels, it's the Signal groups, it's trying to shout into the void that now is LinkedIn at the same time, which kind of has turned into Facebook for professionals at the same time. Compound that with government travel budgets being cut. And I think the quiet thing that's starting to get said out loud is the government population that's representative at these industry events has significantly dropped off for reasons we're all aware of as well. So in this new world order, how do you continue to connect and make those relationships and find other people? All the market research and the conversations we're having, we're pointing to a more discrete social networking platform with the elements that we're familiar with from Reddit to LinkedIn and some other groups in between, to not only work across just like government personas across the industry, but also academia, venture capital, the other important personas that play in the space as well. And then funny enough, along the way, now even like allied partners from Australia and UK and NATO are showing up in conversation to how do they keep those conversations, interact with American business and companies after they have to leave the events that they come over here for.
That is particularly interesting. And it's good to hear that it doesn't sound like we are the only ones that have the problem of trying to connect and having it be primarily happy hour based. And like you said, shouting into the void that is now LinkedIn. I'm amazed at how much clutter and chaff there is on LinkedIn these days. It's incredible to see all of the messaging, and there's confusion going around. There's mixed messaging. There's a lot of just noise that it seems unnecessary. And I can see how there would be a distinct need for a platform in which you can connect with other industry professionals and with government folks as well. Now, are you inviting government personnel or government employees, military members to this platform?
Absolutely. So right now, funny enough, when we had set out our goals towards the beginning of the year of where did we want the waitlist to be by the time we launched, August 19th, we said, hey, 1,000 users would be fantastic. Fast forward to now, we're sitting on a wait list of 60,000 users we're actively vetting and working onto the platform, which is just insane to even say out loud. But roughly 38% of that population right now is on the government side. So we've got organizations all the way from the innovation, more airman level organizations to some of the PEO offices, to some of the policy offices, everywhere in between of those that need to interact and engage with industry, as well as still need to be able to have private conversations on the government side that are not necessarily in a classified setting at the same time.
It sounds a whole lot more collectively secure than what I think Signal has become. And it sounds like there's a lot of opportunity for growth and participation there. How are you finding participants?
Yeah, absolutely. So most of it actually has literally been word of mouth champions taking us from one organization to the next. We're very much helped by the fact that we're several years into already working on the government side, right? So our platform on the government side already has 10,000 plus government users specifically there. So that has a good body for us to talk to and engage with, even in the market research phase of what would work and what wouldn't in the government side. And it was only a month and a half ago that we actually started publicly talking about it online. The bulk of this waitlist and buzz has literally been organization to organization. And I'd say largely that's due to we're making a huge emphasis on how do we be a better community management tool, an ecosystem management tool as well that can overlap, right? One association may have Slack that they use as their channel. One group over here may have Signal over here or WhatsApp or a LinkedIn group, and that goes on, right? So people are bouncing in between really all these apps to stay connected. So we're hyper focused on how do we make it easier for those community managers and those associations to manage and interact and engage their members in a community setting better. Then they're coming on and saying, hey, we as a whole organization are bringing our users over here, and this is now the spot that we can connect, especially across defense. Most of us are in multiple associations, multiple groups, multiple organizations. This starts to play really well when a lot of those groups are in the same space. And I'd say the other key thing, we're keeping it no cost, right? So our revenue model is no cost. Government's not funding it. That allows us to build very quickly, respond to feedback quickly on the features that are needed, and at the same time keep the barrier to entry extremely low for government organizations, startups just starting out in the space to come and explore.
Wow, that sounds like it would be not only incredibly useful, but incredibly interesting and dynamic to be a part of. I'm a member of AFCEA and DIA and CMA, APMP, all of these great organizations, but they all have distinctly different platforms. And it's a challenge to spread my time across all of those different organizations and all of the different platforms in which they're communicating, in which they're hosting conversations. In some cases, organizations have multiple platforms that they're leveraging for communications throughout their communities. So it sounds like this would be an incredibly valuable solution for folks that are really trying to participate in some of those important conversations with other industry members, with government customers, and get exposure across the board there. Now, you mentioned you've got about 60,000 folks that you're working with to vet and add on to the platform. How do folks become a part of that group? Can they just go to your website and sign up? What's the best approach for them?
Yeah, for sure. So there's a few different processes. The easiest one, if you don't know anyone on our team right now, is just go straight to the website. So missioncultivate.com. I believe by the time this episode's released, we'll have switched over from waitlist to requested invite. So there they can fill out a form, request an invite. And there's a specific vetting process that we take people through. It's very clear to us, like we can't have China or Russian influence on this platform. So we're being highly selective and careful and slow to how we let people on the platform. And then the second way we're thinking about it is we're really after bringing on the organizations and the people that are the innovators, that are the early adopters to platforms like this, that are willing to show up and understand, hey, this has a large future and a large roadmap. And at the start of any platform, right? If you're first in, right, and starting to build a presence, like over time, it'll be worth it to build your name, and it'll be easier to build your brand and your connections on a new platform than it would be on like the existing platform that is LinkedIn today. We're going after who's actually going to turn around and be contributors to this community and ecosystem, and not just the ones that want to show up and window shop and see what information can I grab, because there's very specific things that we're doing to discourage or negate entirely any form of spamming, like avoiding the connections that we all know that happen on LinkedIn, where somebody requests a connection and you're unsure if I should accept, and 3 minutes later you're getting pitched. So we're doing many things to avoid that ever being successful on the platform.
That's a really interesting approach. I think that not a lot of organizations necessarily take that specific of an approach. And that's how you end up with all of the noise and all of the clutter in your inbox and ultimately getting pitched. I've got like 30 common connections with this person. I should definitely connect. And then literally like 3 minutes later in a situation where, hey, we do this and we could do this for you. Should we get on a call? And I'm like, that has got to be one of the most annoying things about things LinkedIn and similar platforms that just drives me nuts. And I'm sure it turns off a lot of folks that are interested in building that authentic network and that group of folks that they can look to as thought leaders, as collaborators in the space, as participants in the conversations that they would like to have. So I think that's one of the usually ignored features of things like this that is undoubtedly just going to be successful. Can you give us a sense as to how the platform works? Is it similar to LinkedIn, in which you're posting things, posting articles, blogs, and trying to make those organic connections yourself by going out and looking for them? Or
Yeah, great question. So in the market research, especially with the emphasis on communities, right? So we heard there's some elements of Reddit that people really like. There's some elements of Signal that people really like. There's some things about LinkedIn that we all enjoy. Really, it was finding what is the right mix, because you got to keep it familiar enough where it's easy to show up to the platform and know, okay, this is what I'm supposed to do. This is how it works, while still providing that distinct difference of that more vetted, secure community. So really at its core, again, is the communities. We're allowing communities to be public, private, or even hidden. So public communities, we've seen people, even it's a government, more open-facing organization that wants to post information, but have more of a two-way conversation versus just a newsletter we're blasting out. We've seen people talk about using that feature almost as like a Reddit style form. Hey, we want to gather around topics of interest like UAS or some of the other Golden Dome or some of those other things that we can have open conversation and share their feedback. The private groups are those that are hey, I may be an association or organization, but I only want my members in here, but I still want people to be able to search and find me on the platform. They just have to apply to join, and I can select to let them in or not as the owner of that community. And then the last one was that hidden community, which is, hey, I still want a little bit of that feel of signal. This is special, this is secluded, this is discreet. And even if somebody got linked accidentally to this group, right, it'll throw them in Erica. Like they're not going to be able to access this unless they've actually been invited there. But then giving the space for, hey, I'm sure you're in the Signal chats as well, where it's like if you try to have 3 different conversations at once, like it's not going to happen. It devolves into chaos. How do we start to topicize some of those conversations and set that up? So the communities be at a core, and then the personal profiles like you'd expect on LinkedIn, and those are getting expanded. Company and organization profiles like you'd expect on LinkedIn. Some of the major roadmap features are like, we're going to actually bring in all the contracting data and match those to company profiles. So that'll allow for some more market research and some more fun matching as well. We plan on bringing a solicitation feed in. But then another core component of what we're after was, we all say, the quiet part, a few of us say out loud is, hey, when it's on SAM.gov and that's the first time you've seen the solicitation, you're probably too late. And I know in your work, like you're very familiar, like how do you help people navigate that and get ahead of the game, right? Really, we're going after how do you surface the opportunities that don't live on SAM.gov? It could be government organizations that are simply putting out problem statements, or innovation cells that are putting out problem statements that they want to work and collaborate with industry on. The other side is, we heard from the consultants was, as I leave government, I'm aware of problems and opportunities inside where I just left, right? Or some of the other organizations I'm familiar with. But if I don't have a client that can serve that need, I don't get paid either. So I'm either left to Google and find that capability. So giving them the space to even put that out discreetly of, hey, I'm aware of an organization that needs X, Y, and Z. If you have a capability, and please reach out to me. And then if they can sign a contract with that potential customer, and then they can take and guide them into that organization or other parts of the government, then we're more than happy to help surface, again, those opportunities that are just never going to live on SAM.gov anywhere else.
And that's particularly interesting. It was just yesterday where I discovered yet another challenge type website on which the government is posting things that they have needs for or that they're struggling with. And I found that there's probably comparable sites that are similar to that. The opportunities aren't going to SAM.gov. They aren't touching SAM.gov. It doesn't look like your typical traditional FAR-based opportunity. It's got a lot of different features or functions, and it looks like problem statements that you might be able to solve. But ultimately, folks that aren't intimately familiar with that organization that's posting it or the website itself, they're missing out on those things. And that's a true struggle, especially for folks like myself who are trying to help companies through this, is to convince them that there are other places besides SAM.gov, first of all, that they don't have to necessarily hold a contract vehicle for, that they don't have to go get a GSA schedule just to find challenge-like opportunities, and they don't have to bring themselves on-ramping onto a contract or fully fledged joining a consortium just to be able to access some of these more interesting sort of dynamic problem-based, challenge-based type requests. And so I think that's incredibly important, and having an opportunity for the government, at least, to put out things in a combined and collaborative environment where there may be somebody who has that capability that can actually provide for that, and they're not just limited to the traditional methods or the kind of closed off corner that their unit or branch has decided that they're going to post on. I think that's incredibly valuable. That's definitely a differentiator. How do you get from being requested to join or getting an invite, which I fully expect to get after discussion, by the way,
Absolutely,
into some of these click crowds on some of the groups that you might have starting?
Yeah, absolutely. So part of it is, after requesting an invite, there's a process we take you to vet. There's some things we do on the front end, as far as confirming government ID, confirming relationship to the government, whether in the government or outside the government, confirming there's actually like a real purpose or need to be on the platform. And then on the back end, there's a lot we're doing as far as scoring and vetting and verifying as well, to ensure, again, making sure we're not having a foreign influence inside the platform. And then after that, if you're coming in off the street, you're not coming in with a community or group right away. It's searching and exploring and seeing what's out there. And there's even some like pre-built communities around topics that we're looking for managers in the space, whether that be even GovCon consulting, right, or something like that, starting to put your name and voice out there, bringing other folks in. And really our hope to see really good people that have really good core competencies and value they can bring, start to show up and share that knowledge, bring people around them. And then as they're providing value to these people, hopefully they're winning more customers and clients right along the way at the same time.
Now, I have an interesting question. So one of the problems that I'm typically seeing come up on LinkedIn more and more is theft of content and theft of thought leadership and what most people would consider intellectual property.
Yeah.
And oftentimes it's pretty blatant. There's very much a lack of folks that are putting any thought into what they're copying and pasting and just flagrantly copying and pasting people's content, putting it out there as their own and they're not unsuccessful at building out a bit of a network based on other people's content. Are there do you have anything in place to prevent that on your platform?
Great question. And it's one of the many problems that we have this whole list of, okay, we're going to see where the community and the people take it, but here are the feature things that we've seen other platforms run into along the way. Plagiarism with that content, right? Like next in line with that is even the generation using generative AI to create that content. It's so blatantly obvious that it's AI and somebody copies and pastes that into ChatGPT and then replies back at a comment, right? So that's basically ChatGPT content replying to ChatGPT content. So there are tools that we're working on, and part of it is giving the space for the community actually and the people on the platform to give the negative feedback, the downside. That's not as easily and readily available, but sometimes even some healthy public shaming around, hey, you're just copy pasting and you're using AI content that you've just grabbed and pasted. We want to give the tools for the community to self-regulate in that space as well, to allow those forms of content, which at the end of the day really aren't that healthy or helpful to the people coming on, to make sure, again, that's not successful or that's not promoted. And then the other side is like cutting out the noise as well. So even in the feeds, like we're being very intentional. Look, the feed is just going to be the people you follow, the communities you're a part of, right, and the organizations you care about. There's going to be the explorer side where you can go and see what else is out there that you're interested in. But if you want to show up and, okay, I just want to interact these 4 things, I don't have to see all the other noise that would be out there in a more LinkedIn algorithmic style at the same time.
Does the platform have an algorithm behind it that sort of curates the feeds for you, or is it independently curated by moderators or even individuals?
Great question. So we even have some of the learnings we're taking from our other platform, which has machine learning in the background, which is showing, hey, points of interest. If you're working on this, you should also be interested in what else is going out there. So we're taking some of those same learnings and applying it over here. And then a lot of it is sitting and waiting for what is the data inside the platform, right? Then train what is the right algorithm, what do people want to see from there? And then how do we make sure, thinking through thoughtfully of, I love the post on LinkedIn of, hey, if anyone's at this event, I'd love to interact. And I just saw that 3 weeks after the event occurred, right? So that doesn't help me, that doesn't help the community, right? So there's things we're being extremely thoughtful. And a lot of that we've got the baseline, and a lot of that will be developed and iterated based on how the community actually shows up and uses the platform over time.
I think really valuable to make sure that you're getting that piece, because there are so many things that pop up on my feed. Like you said, people saying, hey, I'm at this event, let's connect. That was about a month ago or 3 weeks ago. Damn, I wish I missed that. I wish I didn't miss that. I think that brings a lot of value to the folks that are engaging and that are participating on the platform as well. So what are your plans for next steps with the platform? How do you plan on getting it out there more? And are you planning on going to events and hosting these conversations at breakout sessions at events?
Great question. So early on, we expected August 19th, Fed Supernova, we're just going to launch it to the world, quote unquote, right? There's still the vetting process, but launch it to the world. Once we saw the waitlist, we realized we needed to take a different approach of, one, even how do we ensure we have the scalability and everything built correctly in the platform, right? That it's a great experience for everyone coming on. 2, how do we get the right people on there first to generate the right types of content, the right types of communities that people can find value with. And then the plan is later in September, we're going to open it up to the broader waitlist and begin that vetting process for those communities. those individuals as well. So we are getting hyper focused though on having that event presence, having the regional presence as well. We're bringing in additional resources. We've got Hire in DC that's come on for a few months now. That is really our presence in DC at the events. We're bringing folks on to Michigan and Colorado and Texas, a few different places as well to start to be that physical presence. Because at the end of the day, we do not want to replace events. We do not want to be the association. We do not want to be the next networking group. We want to be the great underlying architecture to keep the conversations going after the happy hour is over. And for those that weren't able to show up, whether it be on the government side or the industry side, to still be able to find that platform for connections and conversations that they would typically get had they been able to get to those events. So heavily emphasis on there. We've got some speaking engagements and other things that we're going to be participating in just to get the word out. But really, we're trying to see how can we show up, right, and support these existing events, these existing communities and associations.
That's a fantastic approach. I think oftentimes there's a lot of fear of, am I stepping on toes? Am I putting somebody in a position where they feel like their organization is being threatened, or putting them into a position in which they feel like they can openly collaborate? So it sounds like you're very much doing the latter, which I think will be universally good across the board for folks. And just one last question. How are you securing the platform?
Absolutely. There's a few things from the underlying architecture. AWS GovCloud, right, helps us with some stuff off the bat. Then we're bringing a high degree of focus to the security. So between our DevSecOps, the focus around those elements. And then there is both the technology element of how we're vetting people and some of the partnerships we have in that space. Then there's also the human side of the human gut check, the human conversations down to, hey, if it's too questionable, it's like you have to find somebody that's willing to refer you that's already on the platform. You have to get on a call with us, like a video call with us as well, so we can confirm those conversations. So there's a big emphasis, right, on security while keeping the bar low enough where there are good companies out in industry right now that have never done business with the government that are interested, right? So it's how do we still create the space for them to come on, but still monitor, make sure they're not doing anything destructive right inside the platform as well to get anything out that would be detrimental to the community. And of course, there's just a lot of the scoring and some of the arrangements we have on the back end that's vetting the people themselves and the organizations themselves.
So ultimately, government folks can and should feel comfortable coming onto the platform and having some conversations at everything from secret and below or unclassified in that realm, to be able to facilitate some deeper conversations about requirements and challenges and problems that they're having. And even, does it venture into the personal realm? Are you seeing folks have a little bit more of those personal conversations, or are you trying to steer clear of those?
Yeah, so our emphasis is heavily more in the professional setting, right? We don't want to be the Facebook of the national defense community. The reality at the end of the day is we still all are humans, right? So memes are popping up. That's just a core part, I think, any industry anyways, or conversations, right? So some of that fun stuff and the fun element of recognizing, look, at the end of the day, we're still humans on all sides. So there will be those personal elements that we'll see. We've even heard of, hey, we want to start a hidden community for a defense fantasy football league. And we're not going to prohibit that because that just, again, has more draw and more usage and utilization of the platform, right? To then also put on your professional hat and work and connect in these spaces. But still a really big emphasis on how do we become the town for defense and national security in the digital era.
I think that's a great point and incredibly important on platforms like this, when it is just solely focused on things that are so serious and there's so much business conversation going on. It really can't hurt to see a meme every now and then that just makes you chuckle because it's so relatable. So that's a great feature and something to definitely take into consideration. Now, I think you mentioned it earlier, but if folks want to know more about the platform, where can they go to find out?
Absolutely. So missioncultivate.com, you can visit there, request an invite, or reach out to our team. There's email addresses on the website where you can actually reach out if you want to actually meet. We're doing some things, even with communities right now and organizations, that is not scalable infinitely whatsoever. And we've decided to do it to make the experience great, as if somebody has a community of, say, 20 people, 50 people, 100 people, 1,000 people that they want to migrate or test out this platform. We've got the step-by-step process where we will help you create exactly what that community, whether hidden or private, how it's connected right into multiple communities, help you onboard and match those users up directly into the community so they don't even have to come find you on the platform. So there's a whole effectively white glove process that we have to make that adoption really easy for these organizations and associations. So if anyone's ever interested in that, just reach out via the website.
Awesome. And if people want to follow you or get connected with you, is LinkedIn still a good place to do that? Or are you mostly spending your time on your own platform?
Yeah, great question. LinkedIn currently is still, if people aren't on the platform yet, you can reach out to there. I'm slowly starting to phase out of that presence there. The best place is find me on the platform, the MC platform. But now for now, if they want to reach out via LinkedIn, that works.
That's fantastic. We'll get all of those links and especially the link to the website in the show notes, especially for those folks that are really looking to build their next community and looking to have a place to host it. This has been a tremendous conversation, and I'm really excited for folks to get a little bit more familiar and dive right into the Mission Cultivate platform. I think it's a great opportunity and a great place to be. Thanks so much for the conversation, Rob. This has been fantastic.
Thank you, Chelsea. Appreciate all the great questions and the conversation and giving us a chance to speak on your platform.
100%. All right. Have a great day.
You too.
Thanks for listening to this episode of GovCon Unscripted with your host, Chelsea Roberts. Do you have a GovCon story or need guidance in government contracting? Connect with Chelsea on LinkedIn to be a guest on the show or to enhance your business strategy. Don't forget, your network is your net worth. If you liked what you heard, don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and share this episode with your growing GovCon community.